So let me show you what I was trying to accomplish here. So I had this website that was in Joomla. I had to import the data into WordPress and all that. So it was my choice how the data was going to be imported, but it was me that needed to use the data later on. So let me tell you what my issue was. Let's go to the new website. I'll tell you that I have multiple post types for one, three of them to be exact, and all three of them have maps which designate addresses um, for the doctors specifically. Okay, so for the doctors or the medical centers or um, stuff like that. So I'm gonna just use this is Greek. Ignore the Greek. You don't need to know Greek to know what I'm doing. So this is the archive loop for the doctors, and this person, I can tell you, you may or may not understand this, doesn't have an address on her profile, so at least not set in ACF, and I'll show you what that looks like. Um, so I've got all her details, but there's no map on her website. It's currently working, so I'll show you what my problem was, and then I'll go to another guy that has addresses. I have two random addresses that I'm using. Um, that designates his bio or whatever it is, and then his first address, which is a different location to his second address if you look very carefully. Um, so this works. Now I'll tell you what the problem was. So let me go to the front end here. The problem is basically that Divi's map module doesn't allow for ACF fields. So let's preview this that I was using before. Um, to just show you what the map module looks like for Divi when I add it. So I'm just going to enable Visual Builder here. And then I will show you what I mean. So I'm just going to add a row. And then I'm going to stick in a map module. And basically, um, this is what you get from Divi without setting a center location and a map. So you'd have to go and set a pin here and a map location here, assuming your API key is set in on the back end. Okay, mine is obviously set, you can see it, but this is what I would get. So now, as you can see, I can't really use ACF on this field, which is the center address, and even if I try and do a pin, you'll see that the pin will come up, but again, I can't use a ACF field as my pin address to sort of locate. So this is what I would get either way. So obviously I scout the internet for solutions and I run across a few. So let's see if I can find, if I can find them from my history from before. So one solution that I'd found was on Reddit. So let me find that. I don't have it open now. I think, yeah, this is it. It's fine. So I found a solution where this guy could get the module to show up, but not with a marker. And then I actually went and I solved this problem. This was the code that I sort of used here. Um, it was fine. The only problem was it didn't have a marker. So what I did is I went and um, I added two extra fields, although I can now see that my yeah, so this worked anyway. This code worked, but my problem was that in my case I have two addresses, not one. And by the way, using this code, the map would come up even if there was no data in the ACF field. So it would come up as exactly as I'm showing here, where it's empty with a marker on it. So it would look something like it would be this empty blue thing with a marker on it showing this location, which wasn't ideal. So what did I do to solve the problem? Kept scouring the internet and finding solutions. Some worked and some didn't. So in the end, what I decided to do was uh, the following. So there was there is documentation on how to get an ACF maps field on the front end of Google inside of the ACF forum. So it was quite close to that in the sense. So I'll show you what I did. So I have three post types. I'll just use the doctor's post type that I was showing before so that you guys know what I'm doing. So this is where my doctor's profile comes up. So where is, I was about to go into another post type, but it doesn't really matter. So I'll show you guys what I did. Um, I'll obviously put in the code in the show notes or whatever, so you guys can have it because you need it to be able to make this work, obviously. And I don't want you to go and scour on the forums like I had to. So I have three code modules. The first code module basically contains all the code that I used from ACF, the one that I showed you on the forum. You don't touch this. This is standard stuff. It's just a way to get the map showing and then get a single marker on onto the map. Now, the two other code modules is what I'm going to show you, which is most important, are basically shortcodes. I'll show you how I got these. And this shortcode basically um, outputs the map that's associated with the first address because my doctor may have either one address, two addresses, or none at all. So two locations or whatever. So the second one would obviously go to the second location. So now let me show you what I did to get this done. So I installed a plugin called Insert PHP Code Snippet, which allows me to run PHP WordPress type PHP functions without needing to add them to my functions file, which I could have done. But the problem with that is it doesn't actually generate a shortcode for me based on that snippet. So I wanted to make my life easier, not write too much code more than I needed to. So what I eventually did is I used this plugin to generate shortcodes for me. So the code's basically the same. The only thing that changes is like one variable, just so that I don't confuse the code as to where I'm loading it, if that makes sense. So I'll go into the first address and I'll show you what I mean. Okay. And I also tell you about a problem that I came across when I was doing this. So I'll show you exactly what so I wanted to hide the map if it was empty. So it says that you can check a field by doing this if statement and decide whether or not to show the field. The problem with the maps field is because it's complex and not simple like this text field, for example, it kept showing um, even though the address wasn't filled in by the user, so it would show a blank map with a marker in the ocean, if that makes sense. So this is where I had to fiddle around a little bit to figure out what to do. So these three lines of comments, I was using this to see that I was right about what I was thinking. So whenever you check a field, you check if it's empty or not, and we would have done like the what it says on ACF, which is this if statement. Check if your field is empty, and if it's not, do it. Also, if leave it alone, which is fine. This is fine if it weren't a map field. So I had to trick it into understanding that okay, I'm on a map field, so now I have to check if I have um, actual coordinates. So what would happen is if I used the ACF way, it would come back with it would always return the slug of the field. So for example, if my field was called location 2, it would return location 2 no matter if I had a location filled in or not. So this is where I came up with this idea where I would check whether or not the latitude or longitude, you could have decided, is this string, which is not a number, it's the string 0. And if it returns that string, then the map needs to disappear, because that means that there was no latitude in my case. You could have used longitude if you wanted to, which is LNG if you need to. Um, Show the map. Otherwise, don't show it at all. So the only change to this code in the second snippet for my second map is the field name in the first line. So the first one was map, and this one, curiously, is named map 3. Don't ask me why. There is no map 2 in the data that was transferred. But anyway, the only thing I changed is the get field to map 3. I used the variable location2 instead of location, just so that there's no confusion, in case, because these need to run in parallel on the same page. I don't want it to sort of load only the last field visible, if that makes sense. Because if I were using location and I was running this function, it would change to my address too, assuming it was set on both maps. So I needed to distinguish between that, and that was basically it. Um, so now, using these short codes inside of my theme builder, as I said, I added a row, and all I did was add 3 code blocks. The one contains the jQuery and CSS that's required from ACF, which I'll link. I'll put in the show notes. And the other 2 blocks of code, basically, it could have been, you couldn't use Divi text fields. I just like using code fields for this. It's basically the 2 shortcodes for the map. And what happens in the front end, I'm closing this down now. I'm closing this down as well. Uh, Nothing to change here, nothing to change here either. And then I'm not changing this, all this, doesn't matter. Let's see what I need to do here. I actually closed the website, that's funny. So on the front end, what happens is, as I showed in the beginning, I'll go to my doctors, which is this. I did the same thing on the other 2 post types. It's just the map was named the same, so I just literally copied the row from the one template to the other. But this lady doesn't have an address on it, so if I go to her profile, if you want to call it that, by clicking this button, then you'll see that I've got her information, but she has no addresses set, so nothing's set here. But my guy that does have both addresses set, um, like this guy, if I remember correctly, um, you'll see that he has his bio information here, and then you have 1 map, 2 maps, and these are different addresses. I just wanted to be sure that it was actually switching addresses when I was doing this. But that's the basic idea behind all of this. So that's it. Um, so that's how I'm gonna end the stream. I'll put all the code I used in the steps and the code I used in the show notes, so you guys can take a look at it whenever you feel like it.